All right, I am having a wonderful video conversation with pianist Jens Luer. Hope I got close. It's those umlauts that throw me off every time. We're going to be talking, and Jens is in a most incredible point on the planet as we speak, and I will want Jens to tell me about where he is in northern Norway. We're going to be speaking about his grand piano label recording of the piano music of German-born Danish composer Friedrich Kuhlau. And I want to give the year 1786, died in 1832. This man was in the heart of the early 19th century Romantic era. Beethoven, Schubert, all of those great composers, the Schumanns. He was known as the Danish Beethoven. And now that I have had an opportunity to hear your incredible CD, two fabulous sonatas and a reminder of what most of us think about Kuhlau's music as one of his sonatas, one of his hundreds, I think, maybe, I hope I'm not exaggerating, sonatinas that were written specifically to make a living, hello, for young students and so on. So charming, so wonderful. That's what I knew about Kuhlau. You, Jens, have shown me two superb sonatas that are right up there with Beethoven and the others. I believe we're going to talk about them. Let's see. Born in 1968, Jens. I keep thinking, because I'm somewhat older, I keep thinking 68. This is an infant, but of course you're full, in your full manhood. But it always surprises me. Born in 1968. This is the fun stuff, and then I'll shut up and let you get in here. Born in Kuhlau's hometown in Germany, Ulsen, I hope I'm pronouncing it correct, in northern Germany, Saxony. And this is a very interesting city that that speaks to Kuhlau's experience during the Napoleonic Wars, I think, which we're going to discuss, I hope, if we have time. This idea that this little town is about halfway between, correct me if I'm wrong, Hanover and Hamburg. Is this correct?
Yes, it's correct. Yes.
Right in the middle of the occupation of those cities by the French armies in this very time zone of these pieces on the CD about 1813 to 1815. It's fascinating. And you, of course, studied the sonatinas, as did every kid throughout the world, and myself even included, as lousy a pianist as I am.
Yeah.
So that all makes sense, but can you tell me, and I know that from what I've read that you're very interested in contemporary music. Let's just kind of start there. How did you develop this interest in Kuhlau? Did it just go with the territory, or, or what?
No, the first interest was when I studied the Kudo sonatinas with my teacher at the local music school in the maybe fifth year. I studied the piano around, so I thought this was really nice, and other stuff was not so nice. Clementi was okay, and other, but Kula was really nice. I liked it. I appreciated it so much. I liked to play it. And this was the first time I got really. I burned for the music, but I forgot it on the way to be a musician. So I forgot. I was very occupied with other composers and very burned for them. But I did rediscovered Kulo several times.
Including one we're going to speak about, a fascinating treasure trove that you discovered while researching. In fact, on this CD, let me just go up here again and let's make everybody clear about what exactly is on this particular Kuhlau CD. We have the two piano sonatas, the Opus 127 from roughly about 1815, published after his death. Very interesting. Sat around for a while. He dies in 1832, and then they go, "Oh, he's dead. Okay, we'll honor him now." Apparently, and the Opus 8 small a from 1813. It apparently had another subtitle, and then this lovely sonatina, Opus 20, number 1 from 1819. 1820. And again, I'm doing these years specifically because we're talking about a period when Europe was in total and complete upheaval with the Napoleonic Wars. This was the first world war in world history, really, the Napoleonic Wars. So I'm really interested in that. But let me ask you, Jens, you have explained, I think, off camera a little bit that accidents are part of your history. It's not exactly deliberate, but I find it absolutely incredible that you, and you'll have to get out of this one, that you followed in Kulau's footsteps to Norway, that you immigrated to Norway. Go, tell me about that.
Yes, yes, it's very interesting. I discovered this later on when I decided to specialize myself a little bit on Kulau, that there was a similar footpath, and I was not conscious about that, and I discovered as well. He didn't go to Norway, but he went to Denmark, and this was
Excuse me, sorry, Denmark. Excuse
yes,
me.
but from 1813 it was Norway was independent, so I think it was a part of Denmark maybe in that time as well.
Yeah, I can
So
imagine.
I saw as well that he tried to compose the Norwegian anthem, and this was very interesting. So he had connections to Norway and Sweden, and traveled around and played concerts as a pianist there and in Denmark, and he was very interested in the music from the people, the folk music, and so he had a similar path, and I didn't know about that. I just went to Scandinavia to because I was fascinated of the culture, and I liked the people, and so I wanted to get a better job. And so afterwards, this was very astonishing for me.
Amazing to discover these things later because you immigrated to the very town, and at least initially, right, that he went to. I'm trying to find the name now. Um, let's see, we've discussed it. Let me find out, see if I'm accurate. Um, Hang on, give me a second. Anyway, Homeroy, I want to say incorrectly.
Yes.
Am I close?
Uh,
Did he?
yes, was the town where I was first, and that's the place where I played did the recording for the CD, and there's a nice cultural hall, and we had it very quiet there, and I could record the CD there. And I worked there at 5.5 years at the local music school, and so I had some private reasons to move, and so I got as well a 100% job for a certain time here, where I am now in Laxey. Now I'm here 4.5 years, so I'm
Oh,
10
wow.
years, almost exactly 10 years now in Norway.
Hmm. And also, as we hardly need to make clear, one follows the jobs, especially in music. But I do find it must be. I've seen images of both these cities. The larger city where the recordings were made. By the way, beautifully engineered, lovely. It must be a lovely room and a fabulous instrument. And I have some questions to ask you about performance practice. But also to the peace and quiet, I suppose, of, I don't want to sound like a big city guy. I live in a reasonably small city of a couple 100,000 people. But now, where you are now, of course, you took a job and you're, I'm sure, happy, but I know that this is a tiny little hamlet that you're living in now. And I love living in tiny little hamlets. I've lived in small little hamlets. I love it. The peace and quiet. Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. It's it's cold here, and it's dark in the winter, but it's on the other side very bright in the summer. So the sun is up all day, during day and night, and it's quite incredible to live here. And I'm happy with the people, and it's not so few as the most people would imagine. There are 2,500 living just here in Laxey, and there are almost 4,000 people in this municipality. So it's when you work at the school, you don't have the impression that it's a small place. So there are many people there, many pupils, and so it's quite nice.
It sounds it actually, and we are talking about coincidences. I just want to keep a little focused on Kulau and the purposes for his journey through life. And again, we're going to focus on these two sonatas in particular. But Kulau, you know went for a job. Kulau was escaping the French. He was in
Yes,
danger of being conscripted
yes,
into the French army. So he fled for those reasons to escape this dictator. And also he was, from what I've read, a monarchist. And a really big-time monarchist. Even wrote, didn't he write the theme or something for that the royal family used for
Yes,
weddings?
he did, and this is played when the royalty family is present. So it's a actual national anthem of Denmark. This he wrote, what is played when the royalty is present. So few people know that. It's very interesting. There are many things to discover with the componist Kuhlau.
And what I'm interested in is, I'm thinking of Beethoven also, this Kuhlau-Beethoven connection. I think I hear it in the music. Very mature,
You can hear it. Yes.
very, very mature writing. And you know what
Yes.
I mean. Whereas there are so many other composers from that period who write charming ditties as opposed to great compositions. Kuhlau is definitely a serious and major composer.
Absolutely.
But help, where was I? Something about well, I've forgotten. So let's have a look right now a little bit at the music. Again, the interesting years are of composition, and kind of what I'm looking for is, well, I was starting with something about Beethoven, and Beethoven being so appalled at Napoleon's behavior. And at Napoleon's dictatorship, if you will, and I'm sure Kuhlau must have had similar feeling, just appalled at the Emperor of
Yeah.
France invading other countries and so on. A great
Surely he had no sympathy with Napoleon. I don't think so, because he just went out of the country at once and in the night. The border to Denmark was very interesting to know. It was right at Hamburg. It was Hamburg. I don't want to say it the wrong way, but I think it's Hamburg Altona. There was the border, and he went over in the night, and he got a job at the palace there in Copenhagen, and he got help from this Countess Münster Meinhövel. He dedicated the sonata in A to the Countess. But she died, and she didn't know about that. But she was the one who had the contact to the royal family in Denmark, and so he got the job there. He was surely very glad about that job as well.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Talk about good luck. He's escaping, arrest by the invading armies of the French, and is taken in by the royal household, as it were. Now we know that he composed zillions of these charming sonatinas as pedagogical works, really training pieces for young pianists, and so we know a lot about that stuff. But I think you mentioned in your notes that you're and we're speaking about the world premiere. This would be the sonata in A minor, yes.
Yes, A minor 8, opus 8.
Tell me a little bit, because it's always so fascinating about, you're digging around, and all of a sudden you come upon a treasure trove of work.
Yeah, yeah. It was I was in the library, in the Royal Library in Denmark, and I was looking for some works I could play for my first CD, which was recorded in 1995. There was a journalist who was himself a pupil and played Kuhlau sonatinas, and he wanted that something is done in the town Uelzen for Kuhlau, and so he ordered this CD, and I went to Denmark, or went as well to München in Germany, to big libraries, and with the hope to find something interesting I could play on that recording. And so I discovered a little more than I needed. And among those works were this sonata. And in that moment, I didn't want to play a big work from Kuhlau, and I was not convinced that this was good music in that time. But I discovered much later that he has composed really big works, operas, string quartet, and several piano quartets, which are so professional and so convincing. So I didn't know about it at that time, and I only saw the music, the notes, and I couldn't imagine that would sound very well. I didn't try it. I was just an escape at home, and many years, and I discovered it much later than on Hammeret.
And it's so interesting how we, even as musicians, discover pieces.
Yes.
We can look at them, we can play them, we can conduct them in my case, and have really no idea until all of a sudden something happens, a big light goes on.
Yes.
And I just want
Yes.
to speak about that A minor sonata. That one, I was so satisfied with the E flat major sonata,
Yeah.
But when I plunged into the A minor sonata, this world premiere, this piece that had been sitting around unheard for years, it's absolutely incredible from beginning to end. I mean, it is really very, very unique, very inventive. Compositionally, it's brilliant. A million things that we can talk about. But I want to
Yes.
ask you one thing about notation, because I've just finished a very interesting project about Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and I had no. And by the way, about Kula, I had no idea he was an opera composer. That he composed was actually had a very successful career as an opera composer.
Yes, he had.
Yeah,
He
but
had to compose each year one opera for the royal family. So for the king, this was he was obliged to do this every year, and so there were many works, and it's you can hear on YouTube and other and on the internet. You can hear the overtures conducted by Michael Schönwand. So this is very interesting to hear, and you wish every time you would hear the rest of the opera, the whole opera. It's so nice music, and you can only imagine how it is. But you can listen as well to Lulu, the biggest success, and there is a one Röverborgen, also yeah, I don't know the English name now. So it was a huge success, but this is not performed as far as I know. But Lulu is performed was both performed in Denmark and in Uelzen. They did it once, and they did it in Japan. So there's interest there, but I think it could be more because it's
and,
a fascinating world
and it's
of
about
music.
resurrecting it's about misunderstandings over. I'm speaking about how musicians have looked at this repertoire over the past couple
Yeah,
of hundred, and I mean the general repertoire. The big guys are canonized. The rest are dismissed as nothing. I mean,
yeah.
I did the same thing as a kid, as a conductor. I
It's,
thought I don't want to, I'm not interested in these symphonies by obscure composers. I want my Beethoven. I want my Schumann.
yes,
So
yes,
that
yes.
kind of it's nice to see that we are beginning to really rediscover so much critically important repertoire, and that musicians are now so much more open to exploring and performing it.
Yes,
But
that's
I
right.
wanted to ask you this question again because of Beethoven. I had no idea Beethoven was obsessed with the metronome. I mean, that was the great invention of the period, the metronome,
Metronome, yes.
where he could finally put down not just allegro, but indicate the, the real tempos that he wanted. Anyway, but
Yeah.
I wonder in the music of Kula, when you're, how does that work? What are the, have you found any are there any metronome markings? How fully edited are they or
No,
not?
I didn't find it. But you when you read Allegro and you read the music and
Yeah,
the uh, bars, and you know it's three quarters or so I it's not so difficult to guess what he means, and
yeah.
he said Allegro non troppo, or not too much, and so
Hmm.
I, as a musician you can imagine what it means. So I think it's Beethoven was very exact in everything he wrote. So but I think it's not so necessary maybe. But Beethoven was maybe uh, was uh, was afraid of that the pianist don't do that he intended. So maybe he had some bad experiences there.
Well, I was
I,
just curious because I've been so involved in this idea of how important the metronome was specifically in that period, and also just anything about pedal markings, anything at all.
yes, Pedal is very interesting. He is very much when you read the music, so you should play very dry stuff, and there's some parts very extended bars, as extended parts of the piece are with pedal. It's like Beethoven did in his Waldstein Sonata at the last moment. So it's very surprising from time to time that he uses such an extended part with pedal, and so he is also writing very virtuous music. So you can't do very much pedal generally there. So you have to play a little bit dry. But from time to time, he puts clear signal. There you have to use much pedal, and then again nothing. So this is interesting when you
That,
read Kuhler.
well, and that's exactly why I asked the question because, of course, I heard those moments when the pedal happened, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's there. Is that a piece of improvised work, or is that a specific message from the composer? And apparently, it's this rather specific indication from the composer.
Yes, he's quite inventive from time to time with the pedal, but also with the tempo. in the end of the first movement of the A minor sonata. So it's the tempo is going up and down like waves. So I didn't see that before
Ah,
in some piano scores.
yeah.
That the tempo is very unstable, but it's very nice to see how he uses it as a very special effect, if you can say so.
So we're now about going to plunge into the two sonatas in particular because I want all of us who are all of the people. By the way, all of this, the interview, the links to the CD purchase, all of this goes up on performingartsreview.net. I have to put in my little bit, and we'll have a page for you. Pardon me, it's noontime. The rush hour traffic's going by. Um, but help, I forgot what I was going to say here. What I'm curious about always is, am I exaggerating the importance of these particular years around which you have framed your choices for this sonata, or are you saying to me, never thought about that? The Napoleonic Wars, what?
No,
Yeah,
I didn't think so much about that. The music is it's a passion. It's passion in
yeah,
that music, and it's very virtuous. And he was a pianist. I think he wanted to play brilliantly, but at the same time, he wanted to have as much expression as possible. And so he had some uh, relation. He had the idea, I think, like Liszt had and Chopin had to use the virtuosity to produce more emotion. And he was very early with this.
yeah.
And he composed on my first CD. There's variations of the La Campanella theme of Paganini, and this is very virtuous as well. And he maybe is the first one who did virtuous variations over this theme. I don't know,
Hmm.
but it seems he is earlier, but in each case than
And I
Liszt.
think the most important, excuse me, the most important thing I want to project to everyone watching, especially pianists, because I think a lot of pianists are like most of us. We have they might not be aware of this repertoire. So this CD is invaluable in terms of the repertoire. Certainly the two sonatas, they are big works, they're important works, they're thoroughly I want to say through composed. It's not quite the right term, but there's and as per this period, this 1813, 1815 period, there is Sturm und Drang, there is lots of drama. There's no superficiality, and I think that's the huge revelation for me. So many other composers of the time, lesser composers, superficial, charming, lovely,
Yeah. Mm.
but Coulin's a very serious and very intelligent composer. Let me just throw out a couple things I wrote.
Yeah.
Far more serious, of course, than the sonatinas, written in the thick of the Napoleonic chaos. We've spoken to that. And remember, he's fleeing cities. He's fleeing the country in 1813, 15. So I keep wondering, there has to be something there, and of course there is. There is this drama. There is this Sturm und Drang and bravura
Yes.
writing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, if you think about it, it's especially in the first movement of the A minor sonata. It's very different from many other works from Kuhlau. It's a little bit dark. This sonata, or the first, especially the first movement. So
As
I
it
can
should,
imagine that
as it
there are
should
some
be.
influences in this. Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about the A minor sonata now. Again, composed 1813. Uh, is there anything we should know about the naming problem? You know, it's called Opus 8A. It was Opus 16 or something. Anything? Does it matter? The main thing is 1813, I think.
Yeah. I only know about the E flat major sonata that this is obviously composed earlier, and I read about that it was rejected by an editor, and so it was just not. He just didn't have success with this sonata from the editor, and so the people wanted to have the sonatinas and flute music. This was popular, and so you have when you compose, you have to sell this, and so he was not didn't succeed with this sonata, I think, and after he died, so or before he died, I don't know. No, he there was the time to that it was edited.
And I may be a little confused also there, but the A minor. Let's have a look at the A minor sonata. First of all, the key choice. For example, the E flat major is E flat major. There is a brightness to it. The A minor, as you said, is a little bit dark, and it should be, as we've discussed ad nauseum probably about the Napoleonic Wars, the uplift, the chaos all over world, really. The British bombarding Copenhagen in whatever, 1813, 14. I mean, the place was in chaos. Here's what I think lost all of those years in terms of that this sonata is without doubt, at least in my little experience, one of the best sonatas I've heard in a long time from that period. It's so unique. The adagio is gorgeous. There's interesting development of the material, very mature, very Beethovenian, if you will. This very mature, very fascinating development of material.
Yeah.
How is it to prepare? How difficult? Because it is both these sonatas are virtuoso works.
Yes, it's hard to prepare because it's not easy, and you cannot just relax in the sonata when you're playing it. So it's very much to think about always, and you have to really study it a lot of time to get to mature it, to be really in the music, and you have to train the fingers as well a little bit. It's like Chopin studies. You have to do some training with the fingers because it's very many notes in short time. But when you manage to do this, so you can be over the tones and you can see the music clearer and clearer after a while. But I think the reason why this sonata was not played before is because it's challenging. I think it can be reached, and many pianists think as well it's not so interesting as I myself thought. I thought it was not so interesting when I saw just the many notes there. So it seems to be virtuous and not with depth. It seems.
But
So from seeing the notes, from seeing the scores, but my imagination is not perfect in the first moment, so I was not realizing what it meant.
And the harmonic structure of the sonata is what turned on the lights for me. This very mature movement. From tonal area to tonal area, it's very sophisticated. There are some surprises. Go ahead.
Yes, I think this is very surprising. I think people don't believe me when I say it has similarity to Schubert, how he is handling harmonies. I would, from time to time, you see harmonic changes which are very surprising, and so it's not very much preparation from time to time, and so he was very sophisticated, very developed in his understanding of harmonies and polyphonic. He was a master in writing canons, for example, as canon, for example, in English, right? So he was, and especially with Beethoven, he had an exchange. They exchanged some canons, and he was, maybe that Beethoven was writing a canon about the name Kuhlau. It's very nice. You can hear it. You find it on the internet as well, and YouTube and other.
And you answered a question I was formulating, whether Beethoven and Kuhlau had ever met in any way, but apparently they exchanged some music. Brilliant. Well, they recognized each other, perhaps. I mean, I'm really dumbfounded by this man. I had no idea he was of the depth in compositionally as he obviously is. Yeah. And I think what's so lovely about, starting to run out of time, so we'll kind of wind it down, and then I'll ask you if I've forgotten anything. But what I love is the way you have assembled these two very, very important sonatas for us to hear. And then you end the CD with one of his delicious sonatinas, the C major, lovely. Every kid plays a C major sonatina of Kuhlau. And by the way, you're right. I think this music is much more interesting than Czerny. or Clementi,
But I have to say, Czerny, I was as well surprised when I heard the symphony recently. So
a symphony of his?
No one knows that he has written also big works which are very nice.
Exactly. Had no idea. I had no idea. So here we are, beginning to discover, I hope, all of us in music, more and more of the repertoire of these great composers. But about the sonatina, the C major sonatina. And by the way, the last movement of the A minor is actually rather cheerful. It's really, really very pleasant. So I'm always amazed at how composers can kind of, in the end, see the lovely sunset, even through all of the troubles that they may speak to.
Yeah, he does, yes.
Yeah.
He said of himself that he was a very bright person. He was never in bad humor, but... So he was always with bright thoughts. He was a very funny person as well. But he was living alone. He had many difficulties in life. But he lost his eye, and he was not looking so nice, and didn't get a wife, and so was underpaid, and had his parents, had to pay for the rent of the parents, and so he was disadvantaged in many ways. But he was with right thoughts always, and he composed as well in this way. But this is an exception. The sonata in A minor. It sounds very dark in the first movement, partly. So it's surely because of the war around.
And it's perfectly okay for a person of his joyous nature, really, of his happy, his positive nature, to tell us also about some of the hard times, and that would be
absolutely
hard times. So
fascinating.
Yeah, and the sonatinas are so delightful. They're not lesser works at all. But to get into these two meaty sonatas is really the treat of this CD, and I will make sure to point that out to pianists. This is great repertoire. Yeah.
It is. That's the reason why I wanted to place the two big sonatas on the CD, because people don't know this, and he is as well called as the flutist of the king, and not only the Danish Beethoven, but the flutist of the king. But he was not playing the flute at all. He said of himself he cannot play that instrument. It was just the piano. But it was something which people was interested. It was a fashion instrument at that time, and he wrote very nice music for the flute. But his originally he is pianist, and so I think people should see that. So this is my mission, to show people that he was a pianist and fascinating composer for pianists.
Yes, very, very good composer. Very good composer. Not a facile composer, which we might think if we, as
No.
I have for so long, just known only of the sonatinas. Charming, lovely student pieces, if you will. But again, the two sonatas are huge. So here we are. We're going to have to run it down here. I've had a great chat in the far distant Netherlands, nether areas of Denmark. Beautiful little village that you live in, and a wonderful life.
Excuse me, in Norway.
Yeah.
In Norway.
Sorry, I'm always going to get Denmark and Norway mixed up. Excuse me, let me start again. Far further extremities of Norway.
Yeah. Yes.
I got it right that time?
Yeah.
I'm getting old. The block is going on, and you saved me earlier about the kingdoms. Denmark and Norway were together at one point, but that it doesn't make excuses for my brain deadness. Speaking with Jens Luhr, his recording for Grand Piano label. This is piano music, wonderful piano music of German-born Danish composer Friedrich Quillau, the Danish Beethoven, and you'll see why, all of you, when you run out and pick up this CD, including the world premiere, as we've discussed, his A minor sonata, really a major work for piano. What have I forgotten to say? What's going on? Are you up to anything? Are you over your Quillau kick, or just getting started?
I'm very interested to study. I have one piece more, one big sonata more. I have almost already studied this sonata, so I am very interested to play this one day, and to play some variations maybe, and so it can be as well. It's very much to discover the songs you can do. And the as I said, the piano quartets. It's fantastic works. The piano quartets. Everyone should know the piano quartets. It's so beautiful.
I have no clue, so I can't wait. Have you met some string players that will possibly join you on this project? And then, of course, there's always the funding thing, about how to get these things paid for.
Yes.
But, yeah. Well, anyway, great pleasure, Jens, chatting with you. Thanks for giving me some time of your late evening. And again, beautiful CD of the piano works, the serious piano works of Quillau. Thanks indeed very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.